I'm going to tell you a story. It's a true story. I know it's true because it happened to me. It's a story of a monster, the Honey Island swamp monster. In South Louisiana, about 40 miles outside of New Orleans, there's an area of swamp called the Honey Island Swamp. And there's a legend that there's a monster that lives in this swamp. The legend was made famous in the late 1970s by a television show called In Search Of, hosted by Leonard Nimoy. And in this show, an individual named Harlan Ford shows footprints, casts, and talks about the Honey Island Swamp Monster. Well, in 2003, Marlon Davis and I decided we wanted to make our own documentary on the Honey Island Swamp Monster. So Marlon made several trips into the swamp, and then I followed in with him with camera in hand to shoot background footage for the documentary. We wanted to shoot swamp footage, perhaps get some wildlife, the local fauna, flora, and different scenes of the swamp.
We went to get some stock footage that last time I went. That's why we were going. Really didn't anticipate that we would find anything like what we found, but it was quite a ways around there to this waterfall. They had a waterfall coming over a spillway, and then a really beautiful clear stream tailing off into the swamp, and it was just a beautiful piece of scenery. And it was right in the area where the Honey Island encounter was supposed to have happened to Mr. Ford. So great spot to get some stock footage if you're shooting a documentary on that subject.
And we were going into an area where the creature had, legend had said the creature had been seen. We trekked about 2.5 to 3 miles into the interior of the Honey Island Swamp, into an area that we were told practically, no white man had ever, or very few people had ever actually been into that area. When we got there, we found a lock, a dam, and one of the probably most popular fishing areas on the Pearl River. In fact, there were families there that were fishing when we came in that day.
Jay and I walked back in there. I guess we had to cross the lock and go on the other bank, and it must have been a mile or two back in there. It was just way back in there along those banks, and it was in the middle of the summer, and in the middle of the West Nile virus epidemic down there, and the mosquitoes were so thick. I mean, they landed on you. It was almost like fur. I mean, you covered your skin. You wipe them off, and they'd be right back on there. And I mean,
this was the summer of 2003. Every newspaper across the nation, the headline was West Nile virus, and here we were in a swamp infested with mosquitoes, trudging our way through the tundra, to get to this area that people had seen, hunters had seen, the Honey Island Swamp Monster.
We made our way back in there, and when we got to the spot, there were some people who had came in on a boat, and they were fishing there.
So when we got there, we were somewhat amazed to find litter everywhere, cans, bottles laying around, people fishing, children running, laughing, playing. This is in the middle of nowhere. They were arriving to this area by boat. We had walked in.
And Jay and I, we walked up and just kind of told them what we were doing. We had our cameras and stuff out, and they surprisingly enough, knew all about it. The lady told Jay, she said, "Oh, that's a hoax." She says, "My Uncle Ricky, he found a shoe," and I was sort of surprised to hear that. Jay questioned her, I questioned her some.
So while we were there, I set up and started shooting footage, and someone asked, well, what are you doing here? And we said, well, we're producing a documentary on the Honey Island Swamp Monster. And they said, oh, yeah, well, that's fake. And we said, well, what do you mean it's fake? I mean, how do you know it's fake? He says, well, my cousin has the shoe that they were using to make footprints in the ground. Well, this naturally intrigued us. We thought, wow, you know, some sort of physical evidence. We want to see this shoe and this mold on the shoe that they were talking about.
And come to find out, she provided all the information, all the verification, you know, where her uncle lived and where we could go to see the shoe, that she had taken the shoe to show and tell when she was a little girl, and the local people all around knew about it, knew about the shoe. So it seems like the rest of the world was the only people that didn't know anything about it. The people there knew all about it. So it was even in the newspaper there at one time.
So we talked to a lady there. Her name was Michelle. She's the cousin of Ricky Holofield, who apparently owned the shoe, and she gave us a quick interview there right while she was fishing, talking about the shoe.
He was in the woods and he found a shoe that had a print, a mold on the bottom of it. And when he found it, at the time, that was when the big thing about the Honey Island Swamp was going on. I took it to school and showed all my friends.
Now, how many toes did it have? Do you remember?
No, I don't remember, but it was the claws.
It had the claws?
It had the claws and everything, and it was large. It was very large, but it had a regular shoe sitting on the top of it so that a man could walk around in the swamp and make the print.
Oh, great.
But he only found one of them.
Well, somebody was hobbling around with one more.
Well, there's another one somewhere out there, or maybe someone else has found it.
Yeah,
but he found it many years ago.
Do you remember what area he was in?
No, I don't. He would know. I was a youngin' at the time, and I took it to school, but I don't remember.
I bet that was a really good show and tell.
It was a good show and tell. But he'd be able to tell you all about it.
Okay. Well, we'll just try to make contact with him and see if he'll show us this. That's interesting. We appreciate it.
Well, after hearing about this, we decided we wanted to go find Ricky Holofield and see if we could track this story down and see, you know, what there was to it. So coming out of the Honey Island Swamp, as we walked our way back, we were reaffirming to each other that no matter where this story led us, we were going to tell the truth. We're going to tell exactly what we find. So we made it back to our motorcycles, drove around the very the directions that Michelle had given us, and found the home of Ricky Holofield. He had just walked outside. We pulled up on motorcycles. We introduced ourselves, talked to him, and said we'd just run into his cousin fishing in the Honey Island Swamp, and she had told us about a shoe that had some sort of mold on it that was used to create the footprints for the Honey Island Swamp monster.
But he made a little search there, couldn't find it at first, called somebody, then he found it in the top of a closet, brought it out, still had 1970s mud on the shoe. And the craftsmanship of this shoe was surprising. It's amazing me how, you know, clever some people can be.
So he proceeds to go inside and search for this shoe that he had. Here's a photograph of it. We're going to talk about this in just a moment. But we took several pictures of it, and in fact, while there, I shot video of him revealing it to us, and myself and Marlon, and talking about the way that it was used.
That is cool. Let's take a clear look at that. Yeah. Turn it around. I love you, doggone.
Pretty slick, huh? He's got
That it is.
one tip that broke.
But it wasn't broke when you found it, huh?
No. Now you got it put off. That is what they call the Honey Island Swamp football field.
I bet his eyes lit up when he seen this thing, didn't he?
Well, the guy see this shoe?
Now, if you'll notice, the shoe, let me find the right photo here. First of all, let's talk about what it's made out of. It's created out of wood, resin, and wire. And this wood, resin, and wire are fashioned together inside a sort of a resin casing that's very flexible. And this resin casing is offset from the shoe, so that when you're walking through the swamp wearing this shoe, the shoe is at an angle off the top of the bottom of the shoe. The print is at an angle like this, so that as you walk, it presses the claws into the ground and creates this sort of almost digging motion as you walk with them. This fooled a lot of anthropologists, because after looking at the plaster casts that had been out and on television, on In Search Of programs like that, they had concluded that it had to have come from an actual animal because it's a flexible foot. Well, this, obviously demonstrates how flexible it is.
The shoe was vintage 1970s style. So we got good footage of it. I tried to talk Mr. Holyfield into letting me take the shoe, but he did not want a chance losing it, so that's understandable. So he still has it, but we got good footage of it. And the story that he gave me was that they had been out rabbit hunting, him and some friends from here, and they were quite young at the time. And it had been a flood on the Pearl River that had recently gone down and subsided, and they came upon this pile of driftwood, and this shoe was sticking out monster foot first out of that pile of driftwood, and somebody yelled out, "The monster's in there! The monster's in there!" And they all kind of backed off and looked at it, and one of them got a long stick and reached up in there and tapped it, and it just rolled over, and of course it was the shoe, just the shoe. And they got the shoe and looked at it, and oddly enough, they were only like 200 yards downstream from Harlan Ford's camp, where he fished and hunted out of. So they actually got the shoe and wrapped it in a piece of cloth and carried it to Mr. Ford and showed it to him. This is how their story goes.
We took photographs, we did measurements of it, and then we came back to produce our now very quick and hastily put together documentary. We had intended to put together like a whole hour, but now with this new evidence, we wanted to release the information as quickly as possible.
And they said, "Mr. Ford, we have your other shoe." He said, "Oh, you do?" And they held it out and took the cloth off, and he said he turned white as a sheet. He obviously thought they had a regular shoe in there that he was missing. And he said he never commented, never said another word. And that was it. So they knew it was his, and he knew it was his, and they just kept it, and they parted company.
So I did a 10-point comparison comparing this cast, or this resin mold, to all of the known casts of the Honey Island Swamp Monster. In the documentary, we showed 5 of those 10 points, but a few of the really intriguing things, one of the really intriguing things was that if you look at all of the casts that were shown on the In Search Of show, the cast that's available on the internet, the casts that are in museums of the Honey Island Swamp Monster, the middle toe, this toe right here, has a slight arch or a slight bend to it. It's like it's kind of bent slightly over. And if you look at those casts, that telltale little bend is in each one of them.
And he gave me the phone numbers of my 8 or 10 other people. I'd have to look and see how many it was, but it was around that number. And I called them all, and they all gave the exact same story. So the shoe fit the track. I mean, you could hold the cast up like this right here, and there are anomalies in the toes, or I guess it would be the toes, where there's an unusual offset bend that's on that foot and on that cast.
The little nodules here, the nodules in front of the where the fingers or the toes begin, are all represented in the cast. They're all there, exactly where they are on here. It's the same size, it's the same width. With the toes bent, it fits the claw shape of the cast. Some of the casts were spread out, some of them were bent inward. It fits in every way. We did a 5-point comparison and it fit perfectly. This is Ricky holding the shoe right there. And the amazing thing was that we found was that this was a very well-known story locally in the area. Nationally, the Honey Island Swamp Monster had become a major legend, like the Falk Monster and the Skunk Ape and Bigfoot and Sasquatch. This was a major legend, and yet locally they knew very well that there was really what they considered nothing to it.
It's a matter of Occam's razor. The simplest explanation is probably the most correct one. So this was only a year after the release of The Legend of Boggy Creek up in Falk, north of there. So yeah, maybe Mr. Ford thought that maybe he could boost the local economy a little bit or something. I don't know, but at any rate, whether he did or did not hoax, it matters little to me.
The shoe had been featured in a local newspaper. Michelle had taken it to school and shown it to classmates in a show and tell. Individuals had come by and asked Ricky if they could see it, and he would always show it to them. And so we found it fascinating that these documentaries had been produced. These books have been written. There's been articles and things about the Honey Island Swamp Monster up until 2003, where people had gone in and done investigations in this area and never found this. And we went in really not so much at that time on that date intending to investigate. We were there to shoot background footage, and we stumbled into it. I think if you had just asked around any of the people in the area, they would have directed you like Michelle did, directed you to Ricky, and you could go see the thing yourself. So we were somewhat surprised by that. And I think it speaks a little to the psychology of people in general and when they want to believe in something. I tend to follow an axiom, the trust but verify. And I've had several paranormal experiences myself. I have no problem believing in the paranormal, but I also, I realize that hoaxes do exist, and you always have to look for them in any endeavor that you're doing regarding something, to do with the paranormal. So I think this is a lesson. It was certainly a lesson to us, and it's a lesson to everyone, to trust but verify. Always go in and see what it is, before you believe the legend or believe the story. Go investigate it yourself. Go find out what you can learn.
At least if people know about this foot, they can make a good educated decision whether they want to go in there and fight the mosquitoes and the wild hogs and all the other, the rattlers and the moccasins and all of that in there. So if you just like the swamp, go down there by all means. But remember the shoe.
Before I show you the original documentary, which by the way is low resolution, it was originally intended to stream on the web, so I don't have a higher quality version of it. Before we show it to you, I'd like to say that we do not think in any way, shape, form, or fashion that this means that there is no Honey Island Swamp Monster. There could very well be a creature living in the Honey Island Swamp. It's certainly large enough. There's an abundance of food sources for an animal, and it's still relatively remote. What we're saying is that the physical evidence for the Honey Island Swamp Monster, the cast, the footprints, came from this shoe.
Well, basically, you get a kind of knee-jerk reaction sometimes from people. It's kind of a mixed bag. Some people, accepted it. I mean, it's pretty obvious. But other people kind of got a little upset about it. I don't know. You're being a bit of an iconoclast whenever you find something like that, because those are local legends, and it's almost like killing somebody's favorite pet. I mean, I can almost understand it psychologically, but intellectually, you know, people should be willing to let go if the evidence says you should. I mean, you don't hold on to something just because. It's if you either have that or you don't, and it seemed to indicate that you didn't. Now, that doesn't mean that there's not strange, creatures in the swamp. I mean, it's a remote area. It's wild. It's only been logged once, and that was in the 1880s. So yeah, there can be something in there, by all means, yeah. But no one has any real hard evidence of it.
So here's the original documentary that we shot in 2003. It's very short. It's only about 15 minutes long. It'll go into the details of our investigation into this foot cast and how we determined that it's responsible for all the casts of the Honey Island Swamp Monster. Enjoy the program. And the next time that you're in the woods looking for a monster, just remember that behind the curtain there could be a Wizard of Oz.
Hello, I'm M.K. Davis, and I'm here with J. Michael today in South Louisiana along this man-made canal at an area called Lock 1. And it was here in the late 60s that Harlan Ford had his famous sighting of the renowned Honey Island swamp monster. And we're here today to investigate the area, talk to some people, and look around to see what we can find. I think it was about 3 or 4 miles up this man-made canal that Mr. Ford got out of his boat and walked across through the woods toward the West Pearl River. And him and his partner, Billy Mills, encountered this thing. It became a national sensation at the time. It was picked up on the wire and made all the newspapers across the nation. And since then, there's a number of people who've come forward, locals that live around here, and they say they've seen it too, and it's enough information there to make a person believe that it's worthwhile coming down here and investigating to see if perhaps we can find some evidence ourselves. So that's what we're doing here today.
The Honey Island Swamp is located about 40 miles northeast of New Orleans, Louisiana. These 70,000 acres have been the focal point for a legend that began with Harlan Ford. Harlan E. Ford was the first man to report a sighting of the creature in Honey Island Swamp. He made his report in 1974, but it was back in 1963 when he first saw the creature. Harlan was also the first to come out of the swamp with a plaster cast of the animal. In 1963, Harlan Ford and Billy Mills were in the deep woods of the swamp looking for an old abandoned camp they had spotted from the air. Harlan was an air traffic controller in New Orleans, and he often flew over the swampy wilderness in southern Louisiana. The two skilled hunters were on foot and making their way back deep towards where Harlan thought he had seen the camp. When they broke into a clearing, they stopped in awe. In front of them was a massive creature on all fours.
Now, Harlan Ford, I've listened to him on when he was broadcast nationally on a show in church back in the 70s, and I played the tape, listened to it. He seemed to be rather sincere. He said that he had come across this thing in broad daylight, not 15 or 20 feet from it. Him and his buddy, Billy Mills, he's an outdoor guide on Toledo Bend right now. He's still alive. Harlan died. But he said he got a good look at it. And he said it looked like something out of a horror story. And he didn't say nothing at the time. He was still air traffic control, and he privately pursued the animal, tied up the family goat, sat on the deer stand over. all he found after that was some tracks here and there, but he never had another sighting. I'll take that back. He did say he saw it at night on a light up on the bluff above the creek while he was in the boat. But at any rate, after he retired, him and Billy Mills retired.
Baby, my pole ain't gonna make it.
That's when they went focused. That's when they went and told somebody, and it got picked up by the news wires. Yeah.
Jacob!
He said on that program, he said, you know, he's around, you know, the surrounding woods and stuff. Well, that's a pretty good chunk of real estate too. I don't know.
I've flown over it and hunted in it and know where I'm at by GPS, but it all looks the same.
Well, Harlan Ford, when he had his encounter, he had flown over it the previous day and had spotted an old camp on the riverbank. And that's what him and his buddy were doing. They were trying to walk to it. Yeah, and they'd gone up this thing probably about 3 or 4 miles. I think he went to that area they call the cut. That's what I deduced. He got out and walked across. And while he was walking across, that's when they come across it. And it was, he said they thought it was a hog at first. It was on all fours. Well, he said it's great. Yeah. And they talked. And the thing acted like it paid no attention to them at all. And when they got really close, they expected it to bolt and run. He said it stood up on its hind legs and turned around and just, there they were, face to face. He said it had real large amber-colored eyes. Just, the eyes were the most striking thing about it. It had a mane of hair, and hair that came down over the eyes. So just like a bang. It didn't immediately run off. They stood, made eye contact. They had camping stuff. They had an outboard motor, a gas can, and they had their guns. It bolted and ran. He said it ran off on 2 legs, but with a forward lean. And as it entered the bushes, they thought that it went down again on all 4s. They went in there after it. It was high water. There was only one way in and one way out. Dry land. And they couldn't find where it went in the water anyway. The next day, they found where it had come down out of a tree and had skinned the tree.
During the production of this documentary, M.K. Davis and I had the chance opportunity to meet Michelle while shooting footage within Honey Island Swamp. The information she provided us with would change the course of our production and send us on a quest for startling new evidence. What you're about to see has never been broadcast. In fact, this new evidence has never been seen outside the confines of the close-knit Honey Island community. It's our opinion that this new evidence writes the final chapter in the Honey Island Swamp Monster mystery.
Tell us about your own.
He was in the woods and he found a shoe that had a print, a mold on the bottom of it. And when he found it, at the time, that was when the big thing about the Honey Island Swamp was going on. I took it to school and showed all my friends.
Now, how many toes did it have? Do you remember?
No, I don't remember, but it was the claws.
It had the claws?
It had the claws and everything, and it was large. It was very large, but it had a regular shoe sitting on the top of it so that a man could walk around in the swamp and make the print.
Oh, great.
But he only found one of them.
Well, somebody was hobbling around with one more.
Well, there's another one somewhere out there, or maybe someone else has found it.
Yeah,
but he found it many years ago.
Do you remember what area he was in?
No, I don't. He would know. I was a youngin' at the time, and I took it to school, but I don't remember.
I bet that was a really good show and tell.
It was a good show and tell. But he'd be able to tell you all about it.
Okay. Well, we'll just try to make contact with him and see if he'll show us this. That's interesting. We appreciate
His
it.
name's Ricky.
Ricky.
Armed with this new evidence, MK and I left the Honey Island Swamp in search of Ricky and his shoe. After finding the home of Ricky Holofield, MK and I asked Ricky if we could see the shoe that Michelle had told us about in the Honey Island Swamp.
Making arrangements to get the shoe print to look at.
And it flooded. They found it on the floor.
That is cool.
Let's
take a good look at that. Yeah. Turn it around. Well, be doggone.
Pretty slick, huh? He's got
That it is.
one tip that broke.
But it wasn't broke when you found it, huh?
No. Now you got it put off. That is what they call the Honey Island Swamp football field.
I bet his eyes lit up when he seen this thing, didn't he?
Well, the guy, see this shoe? he walked up to the guy when he had this, and the man still wore the same type shoes. He said, I found the other set of shoes. I went out to set and found the other shoe, and it was that one. And the guy still had that same type of shoe.
When we say the guy, what guy?
I don't remember his name. I can't remember. My dad could tell you all about it.
Was he an older fellow?
Yeah, he was.
Well, he may be dead by now.
I'm not sure. It hadn't been talked about in a while.
Well, I can see why.
But yeah.
Well, why talk about it now? If you don't talk, he lives on.
Yeah, they wrote over on it in, I think it was Slidell News or Century News. It's a clipping somewhere around here. But I've walked, me and my family, we've walked that swamp from one end to the other.
Y'all have never seen anything
There's
like
another place in that swamp that I haven't been.
Yeah.
Have you ever?
Ricky couldn't remember the man they presented the shoe to, but later MK talked to the Holyfield family and discovered that the man who the shoe belonged to was none other than Harlan Ford. It was Harlan that was shown the shoe, whereby he had no comment. The shoe, with its print, was identical to the shoes Harlan was wearing at the time. We have compared this shoe print to all known photographs and casts of the Honey Island Swamp monster, and in each case, we've determined that this shoe is likely responsible for all the photographic evidence presented so far. Here's the shoe along with photographs of known Honey Island Swamp casts and cast photos, including the original casts cast by Harlan Ford. The shoe print is the same size and width of the casts. It bears the same indentions where the toes begin. Even the telltale tilt of the middle toe can be seen in comparison to this cast photo. The bends and arches of each toe can be easily seen represented in the casts. The print, offset from the shoe, creates the impression of a flexible foot when pressed into soft ground.
So where has this investigation taken us? What is the end point of all of this? After having spoken to Ricky Holyfield and gotten the names and numbers of his people that were with him when he found the shoe and the print, I called these people. I called 3 of them. I haven't yet contacted the 4th one. But they all 3 gave the same story. And they all concurred with Ricky Holyfield on the events that took place that day. They were rabbit hunting. Their beagles had struck a trail of some pigs, family of piglets, and they had gone in there to try to rescue the dogs, get them off the piglets trail. And that's when they found the shoe, and the shoe was sticking up out of the sand in the Pearl River. I mentioned Mr. Ted Williams. According to testimony, Mr. Ted Williams was a frequent visitor at the Ford camp on the Pearl River, and he was known for yarn spinning. And they spent a few weekends out there together. They hit the wine bottle a little bit. This is according to testimony. And so if you want to go to Honey Island and see one of nature's really wild places with this country's really beautiful swamplands, I encourage you to do so. But if you're coming to look for the Honey Island swamp monster, be prepared to spend an eternity because she's just not there.
It remains possible that some creature may exist in the Honey Island Swamp. It's certainly large enough, but as we've discovered, there is no reliable physical evidence of it. The Honey Island Swamp monster legend, like all legends, may live on also. Wherever there's a campfire and a buddy to tell the tale to, you can bet the creature will live again.